Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the Mean Girls of Morgantown Part 7. Today we're going to be talking about the tragic life of Skylar Ness. When we last left off, Rachel and Sheila would be issued a warrant by the police to confiscate all their electronic devices, and they would even give them warrants to check their lockers, and the police would begin going through their cell data and would find a lot of discrepancies in the stories that they had told the police 6 months earlier. For starters, one of the discrepancies that the police would find is that Rachel and Sheila had not texted Skylar as they had originally informed the police. When they began questioning the police, they would tell the police that they began texting her around 10 o'clock at night and would pick her up at 11 and drop her back off at 11:45. But the text messages would show that both girls would not text Skylar till at least 11 p.m. Another discrepancy that the police would find as when they began checking the electronic devices, the cell phones would ping off of towers that were completely opposite places that they had told the police. One of the places that the police would find is that they had actually driven in Blacksville and had gone as far as driving to Pennsylvania and were seen pinging off of towers driving in an area called Morris Run Road. But the next really big break in the case would happen when the FBI and the state troopers would be going through the video footage of Skylar Ness running out to the car on the night that she went missing. And a lot of this would involve just going over the same video footage over and over and over again. And the FBI and the state troopers realized a couple things that were very apparent as Rachel and Sheila would tell the FBI and the investigators that they had dropped her off at 11:45 p.m. And when they checked the video footage, they realized the only time Skylar went out of the house or snuck out of the house was at 12:31. And regardless of what Rachel and Sheila had tried to tell the police, there was only one car that had actually picked her up, and that was actually the silver Toyota that was owned by Sheila Eddy, which would tell the investigators and the FBI that Sheila Eddy and Rachel Schoaf were the last people to see Skylar Ness. And this would confirm Jessica Colbank's theory that the girls had actually knew more than they were leading on. So the police would quickly call Rachel Schoaf and ask her to come down for another questioning, and they would bring her into the station and they would ask her, be like, so could you just refresh our memory and just tell us the events of the night? So Rachel would tell the police the same story as her and Sheila had told the police so many times before. And this is where the investigators really started dialing up the pressure. And they would turn around and they would tell Rachel, well, we know you're lying. And we know you're lying because we checked your cell phone records and the towers pinged off of multiple places that you did not seem to mention in the story you just told us. And would tell Rachel that the cell towers had shown that not only was she in Blacksville, but was also in Pennsylvania. It's at this time that Rachel would change her story, and this would be the second time that the girls had started changing their stories up. And Rachel would tell the police that, yes, we were in fact in Blacksville, and yes, we did go to Pennsylvania, but we just did not want to get in trouble. So the police would ask, what are you talking about? And this is where Rachel would tell the police that they had driven down to Blacksville and had gotten into Pennsylvania on a place called Morris Run Road, and would tell the police that during this time, Skylar and Sheila had got into a fight. And the argument was so bad that she jumped out of the car and the girls drove off. And she would tell the police that they would turn the car around and begin looking for Skylar, but they couldn't seem to find her anywhere. And so they would eventually just give up, and they would just drive home and leave Skylar to fend for herself. To say that the police bought this story was pretty questionable, and it's very apparent at this time that the police were really starting to up the pressure on the girls. After Rachel would leave, the police would call Sheila immediately and would ask about the events that had happened that night, and she would tell the same story that she had been telling the police. And it wasn't until after that investigation that Rachel would actually call Sheila. And immediately after that phone call, she would call the police and she would be like, listen, I lied. This is what really happened, and so on. So the police knew that the two girls were working together, and definitely knew at this time that they knew a lot more than what was going on. After this, the police would start upping their pressure a little bit more, and they would issue a subpoena to both girls to appear in front of a grand jury. And it's at this time that the girls began texting not only friends in school, but they had also began texting each other about the grand jury. Rachel would be really worried about this subpoena, and it was shown in Sheila's messages that she really wasn't worried whatsoever. And she would even try to calm Rachel down, but Rachel would just, be constantly questioning Sheila. Well, what do they want to know about the subpoena? And Sheila would confide in Rachel and say that her lawyer had told her that they're just going to be asking about drugs because they're going to follow the drugs to find Skylar. And it should be also noted that in this conversation, Sheila would also more or less mock the investigation and would say, I'm not really scared of lying, but it's not like they're going to know the difference anyways. And it's from this subpoena that they would actually give an order to both girls to take a lie detector test. Sheila would be the first one to take this lie detector test, and she would bomb the lie detector test. She failed at least twice. And it's said at this time that when Rachel's turn was to go for the lie detector test, her father would actually be driving her on the way to the police station. And it's said that as they were driving to the police station, Rachel would be so visibly upset that she would actually jump out of the moving vehicle and completely hightail it over to Sheila's mother's house and would hide out there till they could actually persuade her to get back in the car and go back to the station to take the test. So it's very apparent at this point in time that Rachel was really cracking under the pressure from not only the police but the FBI's investigation. And it's at this time that Rachel's mother would say that it's at this point that Rachel was becoming more rebellious and more violent and just more difficult to raise, to where not only would she be calling family, friends, and neighbors, but she would even make a call to her ex-husband and ask him to also move back in the house to help raise Rachel. And all of this would come to a head on one afternoon when Rachel and her mother would be getting into a fight, and Rachel would take a candle holder and threaten to bash her head in, to where the police were called and they would be led to the room where Rachel had pretty much barricaded herself, and they would coerce her to coming with the police, where they would take her to a mental institution. Now, while she was at this mental institution, she would be completely barred from talking to Sheila Eddy. And after being there for a short period of time, she was a complete changed woman. And her family would pick her up, and it's at this point that their lawyer would actually make a call to the police station. And he would ask one simple question: is the immunity offer still on the table?